That was a rather difficult game to soak in, but we are here to talk about it all. You got me, JR's rankings over on Twitter, our guy 216 underscore wild boy, Mike over on Twitter as well. Mike, this is a tough one to swallow, man. How you feeling?
Yeah, hey, it definitely was a tough one to swallow, man. But hey, the Oregon Ducks got it done, found ways not to make mistakes, and they capitalized on all of the Buckeyes' mistakes. So hey, it
That
is
they
what it
did.
is.
That they did. I thought there for a little bit the game was going to come down to a field goal and we'd be relying on Jaden Fielding again. And then, freshman mistake by Jeremiah Smith. As great as he is and as, talented as he is, made a mistake in that one. And you could argue that maybe it shouldn't have been a call, but at the end of the day, they called it. It is what
Yep.
it is. I'm not really sure there's much else you can do. So we got a lot of people in the chat. I always feel like there's more people in the chat after a loss than there is a win. So it's good for our numbers, I guess, but not good for any of our fan base because we don't want to see the L. Mike, was the Jeremiah Smith offensive pass interference there at the end of the game? Was that the biggest factor that led to this loss? What are your thoughts?
No, it's not the biggest factor. Here's the thing. Like I told everybody, and I've been telling everybody for weeks, you're going to have a true freshman out there, and he's going to make mistakes. And I mean, there was other mistakes and things like, and also him sometimes not understanding field awareness as well. So I mean, you're going to have freshman mistakes, but I don't really think that it can all be put on just the offense either.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't be just on the offense. The defense definitely had their issues in this game. We got a number of people pointing out the defensive mistakes. I have a conundrum with the defense there, Mike, because I do blame a large part of this on Denzel Burke. Denzel Burke probably had his worst game of his career, and there's been some bad secondary games for in Ohio State these past few years, and he had his worst game of his
Man.
career by far, if you ask me.
Yep.
But at the same time, the defense, as much as the run defense did struggle with, or the D line did struggle with pass rush, and JT Tuimoloau didn't, set the contain on the quarterback there with that big long run. They did stop the Oregon Ducks within the 5 yard line once for a turnover on downs, and then they also stopped them for a field goal. Now I know there's no moral victories, but you have to at least be impressed with that from the defense. What do you think, Mike?
I mean, yeah, but I feel like it could have not got to that point. I think that there's also some issues in practice. One of the things is our defensive coordinator does not like to tackle in practice, and there was multiple missed tackles. And also the thing when you're tackling in practice and things like that, you have a different physicality to you when you're playing in those games. And what I felt like I saw was Oregon wanted it more. People was talking about their little DBs and everything, but them guys was wanting it more. I mean, you just seen them out there flying to the ball, playing physical, and here's the thing. Also, when you talk about the offense as well, what I've been very worried about was you're throwing short passes, hoping that your wide receivers get yak. And I don't think that you can always, against good defenses like Oregon, what were they doing? Making those tackles and stopping us in space. They was making great open field tackles.
Yeah, they were. They were. And I think that, the thought was we're going to be able to outblock them, just get the ball out there
Mhm.
and block those guys and get out in space. And our guys are too quick for them to tackle, and they're too strong for them to tackle. But at the end of the day, Emeka Ibuka was not the fastest player on the field, and Jeremiah Smith, as big and as strong as he was, that proved to be the difference there at the end that like I was telling you before we started, I didn't feel like he pushed off that hard, but just the fact that he is so much bigger than the other guy, and there could have been some embellishment there at the end as well, right? I mean, I feel like that's kind of a questionable time to do that, but still. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing is Will Howard taking the ball, trying to run. I don't know if he thought there was 10 seconds left instead of 6. I don't know what in the world that they were thinking with the play clock continuing to, or not even the play clock, the game clock continuing to run there after the Jeremiah Smith issue. I At the end of the day, I can't blame it all on the defense or blame it all on Jeremiah Smith or blame it all on Will Howard, because at the end of the day, it seemed like there at the end of the game, everybody made mistakes.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing. You're going to have mistakes, but when you're supposed to have one of the best secondaries in the country and then, the leader on your defense is getting cooked out there over and over, and I just remember a time where, in 2014, um, yeah, he wasn't even a senior. I want to say he was probably like a sophomore at the time, like Garyon Conley, but he just wasn't having the best of games. And we just went with someone else who would have been a more high hand, right? It happens. Sometimes you just don't have those games. And it's like, okay, you give up at one. That's understandable. You give up two, okay, I'm alarmed. But it wasn't just that. It was like Oregon was like, hey, we need this chunk play. Let's attack this guy. Hey, we need to get in field goal range. Let's attack this guy. And it's like they're pointing it out. Why don't we make that type of personnel change? Because we know that we have other talented guys there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, Ohio State was the more efficient team, and Ohio State was moving the ball better, more consistently, but Oregon was getting those big plays, and that was one of my keys of the game was Ohio State couldn't allow the big plays, and they hadn't allowed the big plays all season long, but in this one, if you would have made Oregon try to drive down the field, first, second, third down, every single drive, like that's you would have you would have won the game. But the fact that Denzel Burke got cooked multiple times, the fact that JT Tuimoloau didn't keep contained, and I know I'm pointing those guys out. There's other people as well, but still, like you allowed the big plays, and that's what I thought the defense was fixed from last year. That's what I thought I could kind of rest my head on is like, okay, they're not going to give up the big plays, but that didn't happen here.
Yeah. Um, Definitely didn't happen here. And you know, and that was the whole thing. See, I have been talking, over on the best damn media platform. If people follow me, some people follow me that's watching, they know I have talked about this. Like, I feel on the defensive side of the ball from 2022, I felt like we made an overcorrection, right? Because they were talking about us giving up the explosive plays. But I felt like we had more guys in the secondary that were better this year, where we could still run that type of defense, and we just haven't been doing that. And I felt like there were times we could have got more pressure. That's another thing that we're not talking about. Lathan Ransom this week was talking about, hey, if we get our if we're able to hold our guys for at least 4 seconds, right? We know our front four is going to get home. That did not happen a lot.
Yeah.
He was able to sit there, feel a little bit comfortable. And I also thought that they would move the pocket a bit more, but they really didn't have to.
Yeah, I thought this would be a game where Ty Hamilton and Tyleik Williams would get some more pressure on the quarterback, but they did not. And I think that, it's kind of goes a little unnoticed because of the big plays that happen in other areas. But when you can't get pressure on the quarterback with just your defensive line, your secondary is going to be in tough situations like we saw them be in multiple times because they were trying to play man and they were trying to stop guys all by themselves. And so you're having to bring down not only in passing or to get pass rush and stuff like that, but also I didn't think the linebackers played a very good game here, Mike. I felt like the linebackers and the run defense were getting exposed a number of times. And so you had to bring down Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs into the box, which you shouldn't have to do. Derek Harmon was
Mhm.
completely tearing apart the interior of our offensive line. That's what I thought Tyleik Williams was supposed to do. That's what I thought I was going to trust that Tyleik Williams could do, but he couldn't. Hats off to Oregon's interior, their defensive line. I called them questionable earlier in the week, and turns out they were possibly the least questionable part about this offense because they completely neutralized Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton, two guys that you had to have play well if you were going to win this game, and they just didn't.
Yeah. And then also, I think another thing that hurt us was Josh Simmons going down. Did that end up limiting the playbook? You saw that they were able to get a little bit more pressure and things on Will. Um, I wonder if that kind of hurt the O line's confidence. I thought they were going to be able to, like, kind of run the ball a little bit more. Was kind of shocked Chip Kelly came out throwing the ball a lot.
I was too. I wasn't too shocked with what he was doing throwing the ball because I do think he was trying to expose the size advantage they had on the outside with the wide receivers. There was, a number of screens and stuff like that. And I mean, let's talk about the Judkins fumble at the beginning of the game. That was killer. I mean,
Yeah,
you were
facts.
you had some momentum on offense. You felt like you could drive the ball or move the ball down the field, and then Derek Harmon gets back there, just completely tears the ball out of Quinshon Judkins' hands. Like, I mean, Judkins didn't have a good day, but even an average day with that happening to you, I mean, like, what are we doing here? We talking about having two of the best running backs in the nation. Travion Henderson played well, but Quinshon Judkins, dude, next time you play Oregon, you're gonna have to come out and play better than that because other than maybe what was it, one goal line touchdown, like it's just not enough to win these big top three matchup games.
Yeah, I mean, and we came out there on Buckeye time, man, and it's just one thing that I was worried about was being disciplined. I was on the Oregon show. They had me on the Voice of College Football, and that was something that I was worried about was like the penalties. And then I was also worried about like if we get behind the chains, I just feel like our offense isn't one of those offenses that is used to being behind the chains or, can facilitate that. Like when you have a CJ Stroud, you don't worry about that because you know about his arm talent. Same thing with Justin Fields. And it's just like we don't really have that right now. But Will was not bad. I thought if we lost this game, it would be, on, you know, just Will Howard. That's not what happened. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, and Will, I can't put this on Will Howard, man. It was just it was a team effort.
Yeah,
All the mistakes that happened, team effort. Wide receivers making mistakes, quarterback make mistakes, O line made mistakes, running back room made mistakes, DB room, like everybody, D line, the whole team. So there will be no player at a game, no defensive players, no Buckeye leaves for these Buckeyes at all. Yeah, it just
yeah.
is what it is.
Yeah, you can't pin this one on Will Howard. You can definitely say that, running the ball toward the middle of the field like that was questionable at the end, but I mean, if you watch the replay, unless the play clock in the stadium was different than the play clock on the TV, he
Yep.
got down and they were calling timeout. Now, I'm not making any excuses because the refs do what they do, and I never really blame the refs for anything because they're gonna make bad decisions. We know refs suck. It is what
Yeah.
it is. But at the end of the day, like if I'm looking at that objectively, he was down and he was calling timeout, so he probably should have had it. Like I said, could have been different play clock in the stadium, but other than that, I mean, it really was nothing to do with Will Howard's play. The biggest issues for Will Howard that game was number one, the sliding and calling timeout. Maybe don't put that in the referee's hands. And then number two,
Facts.
the fumbled snap was the other one where I felt
Yeah.
like they could have had a long drive there, went down the field. If they would have scored a touchdown and made that a long, 7, 8, 9 minute long drive, you'd have had the win. But Will Howard fumbles the snap there on third down. Don't know if they would have got it, but he fumbles it, and that killed that drive real fast, and you don't have anything to do there. So we got a super chat there. Mike, you want to bring that up?
Yep. I got you.
Could we speak on the play of Denzel Burke? Sorry if you talked about it already. We did talk about it already, but we didn't really go super in depth. Mike, there's a lot of people in the chat saying that Jermaine Matthews should have got some time in this game. I felt like Hancock had a pretty good game for the most part. I felt like Igmanosin had a pretty good game for the most part. Denzel Burke was definitely the fish out there that they were continuing to attack. And when you have a fish, you just keep going after him. Now, in the second half, his coverage was better, I felt like, but he still had trouble tackling. And so, like you can have a little bit better coverage after giving up 100 plus yards, but if you can't tackle, I don't know if there's much reason to have you out there.
Yeah, I mean, but that comes down to practicing tackling, like I mean, we used to have DBs who could come downhill and didn't have to set their feet. They knew how to strike and go ahead and get that. And you just saw like even Oregon's wide receivers were able to fight for extra yards multiple times. And I mean, I'm shocked what happened to Burke. Just continuously getting beat like that. You know, I understand, you know, it happening once, but it shouldn't happen twice. And like you were saying in the chat, you know, I thought Jermaine Matthews would get out there too. I think that we should have saw that. I think we needed a big play from our defense, and we didn't get that. We didn't cause any turnovers, to be honest. I say the refs gave us a blessing in the beginning because that was really an interception to me. Ball never hit the ground. And so the refs helped us out in the beginning, but they definitely weren't helping us out in the end. It is what it is. But that's why I always say you don't leave the game in the refs' hands. But I mean, just one player giving up, you know, multiple explosive plays and giving up 14 points. And here's another thing. Did you see I think they settled for the field goal, but they had a wide receiver open in the flat, and it looked like Hancock was pointing to Burke to go,
Yep.
and Burke didn't go. I mean, I don't know what
They
the
ran the
defensive
pick
call.
play. They ran the pick play to perfection there, man.
Yeah, and I mean, my whole thing is I don't know what the defensive play call or what it was, if Hancock was supposed to go or if they were supposed to switch, but I mean, thank God it was a lefty quarterback. Like I even told my friends, I'm like, thank God that was a lefty quarterback who just was focused on his, you know, the left side and didn't look over right. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a tough play for your lefty quarterback to try and go across his body there and look for the
mhm.
guy. He was wide open, so I mean even if he took a little bit of extra time, he was going to get it there. So you know, thankful that he missed him there. But at the end of the day, Dylan Gabriel didn't throw to that right side of the field. I put out his passing chart earlier in the week, and he did not throw to the right side of the field all that often. So when you see Evan Stewart just completely burning Denzel Burke onto that 20 plus yard right side of the field. Like, I mean, he's literally not even thrown there all season long. I think he had 0 passes to that top right corner
Mhm.
all season long, but he has 2 passes tonight on Denzel Burke. Like, I I get it. He's a captain. I get it. Like Jim Knowles trusts him, but at a certain point, like what are we doing if this defense doesn't hold people accountable? I remember the days when Josh Proctor, missed a tackle early on in the Notre Dame game. Man, we didn't see him for 5 more weeks. Like he he was out for a long time. But you got Denzel Burke missing tackles. You got Denzel Burke giving up 2 big long plays. One of them was for a touchdown. Like, and he gets to continue to stay in there, continue to play. I mean, I'm not advocating for anybody to be mad, but like if I was Jermaine Matthews Jr., I'd be like, what are we doing? What else do I have to do to get into the field?
I mean, you kind of been seeing Jermaine Matthews out there, you know, posting, sending subliminal messages and then deleting them and things like that. And
Yeah.
to be honest, it does worry you when you know he has the makeup speed. There was times like even one of the passes that got past Denzel Burke, like he had makeups. Like Burke didn't have makeup speed, but we know Maine has breakup speed. Like
Yeah.
he could have probably broke the ball up or something like that. I mean, it's just, and even the one where Burke was the first one that he gave up. And it's like he wasn't trying to make the tackle. He was going for the ball the whole
Yeah.
time. And it's like
He's
you
trying to
just
get a
gave up an
fumble.
explosive play, bruh. Get him on the ground.
Yeah.
Swing him out of bounds.
That's one of those ones where if he gets the fumble, you're like, oh my gosh, he got the fumble. Like that was a really stupid decision, but you got it. And if he doesn't get the fumble, you're like, man, what in the world? Get him down. Like it's one
Yeah.
of those ones where he was gambling and would have looked like a really cool play if he got the fumble, but he didn't. So I mean, shout out to Evan Stewart. Like that was a great job by him. He did an awesome job with getting by Denzel Burke and making the plays each time. So I can't even like say anything bad about Oregon after this game. I just felt like Oregon played really well and they took advantage of the opportunities. One of those big opportunities was early in the game. I mean, Mike, did you think that onside kick? Like, do you think that was on purpose? Did you think
Mm-hmm.
that was accident? I felt like it was on purpose with the way Dan Lanning was reacting. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually caught it.
Okay.
I called it. I said, watch out for the onside kick. And it's exactly what happened. And I mean, it was a lot of stuff, man, in that game. I was calling. Seeing I just don't understand how like our defense wasn't seeing it. Another thing, we got out rushed in this game. Another game. Every time we lose a game, we get out rushed. I will say that this is probably the first time we rushed for I think over 100 yards, but we didn't have a 100 yard rusher. I don't know if the injury rumors is true about Judkins or whatever. That's why maybe he's not covering the ball up with his right hand or something. Um, but he didn't really have a good game. I think he only averaged like maybe 2 yards a carry,
Hmm.
maybe like 2.1 yards. Even though he had the touchdown. Uh, and then I thought also that in times like Travion Henderson, Trey, you're a running back. Stop acting like a wide receiver and get north south, bro. Like, use your pad levels, man. Because the one play where I know he had got the D tackle off of him, Harmon, he got him off of him, and I felt like he could have just went north and got the first down, and he didn't do that. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I felt like Trevion reverted back to his old self a little bit, where he had that big run. What was it, like a 70-yard run? Or no, it was like 70 yards total on that drive with like two runs or something in that second or third drive of the game. And it almost felt like he was like, "Oh yeah, I gotta have these big runs," and so he's waiting back there. He's trying to get the perfect hole and hit it, and then go for it. It's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, Trevion didn't play bad. And there were certainly times where Travion was getting hit in the backfield that I feel like it's like, what are you gonna do? Like he's doing his best out here. The moment where Will Howard was kind of stuck in the backfield and the pressure was all around him, he flipped the ball to Travion, like, and Travion got 3 yards out of it. I mean, that was a good play by Travion, but you're exactly right. It's you have to hit the hole, you have to go for it, and if you get 2 yards, that guess what? That's better than no yards. So
yeah.
um,
It's
definitely
just
definitely
awareness.
frustrating.
Yeah, it's just awareness. Like you don't need to make the big play. You don't need to, make the wide receiver moves. You need to get up north and get this first down because it's a critical drive, man.
Yeah.
And I honestly feel like the awareness was lacking from some of our key guys out there. And I know, like I said, that was one thing about JJ. We've seen it, multiple times this season where his field awareness isn't there. And I felt like a couple times like he could have had better leverage or putting the DB in a certain situation than what he did so that he could have a better leverage on the ball instead of getting himself pushed out of bounds and things like that. But it and that those are things that's going to come with time. I want to say shout out to Emeka Igbuka. He was out there cooking, and
Hmm.
JJ did make plays. He made plays. I felt like Will Howard had threw a dot in between to JJ, and I thought JJ was probably going to get tackled. What do you do? Go and run it, I think, for a first or get yardage on it. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. I did feel like I did feel like they went to G Scott more in this game than we had seen.
mhm.
That was kind of a nice little surprise there at the beginning of the game that he was getting open over the middle of the field. I would have liked to see them expose the middle of the field a little bit more. It seemed like they didn't really want to go there. I don't think that Oregon has the best coverage linebackers in the world, so I definitely felt like that was something they could have emphasized a little bit more. I was concerned they weren't going to go to it anymore after the Will Kazmarek thing, but I don't think we saw Will Kazmarek after that. At least I didn't really see him
I
in there.
don't. I mean, to be honest, you have G Scott and you have Jelani Thurman, who I think are phenomenal athletes. When you want to
Yeah,
throw the ball, that's who you want to get the ball like in their hands. Like I understand, we brought Will here and everything, but if you are not holding up to the standard, let's stop forcing people on the field. Like that's one thing that I really have an issue with our program. Like play the best players, not just seniority sometimes. And but I think that we could have went to G Scott a lot more. Like if you want to
yeah,
go across the field, like I think we could have did that. You put Jelani in there a couple times and just had him block. Why don't we have him leaking out?
yeah,
So
yeah. I agree. I agree. I think that Jelani, he was basically non-existent in this one. I don't even think he had a target, did he? Maybe one target, but Didn't have any catches, didn't have any yards. So, you're utilizing Will Kazmarek, but you're not utilizing Jelani Thurman. That's a little strange in my mind. But Chip
Facts.
Kelly's the mad genius. So whatever. I guess he'll figure it out. I don't. I guess I'm having trouble with this, Mike. As I think through it more and more and more, like you always want to come out of these losses with somebody to blame, and it's easy to say, "Oh, it's Denzel Burke." And I think that's probably who in my mind I'm looking at as like this is the one to blame. But through all of this conversing, me and you, like I look at Chip Kelly and some of his play calling as well. I look at Jim Knowles and some of his play calling and say, what were you thinking there? I look at our defensive ends and what they were doing. JT had a better game than Jack Sawyer did tonight. I don't know where Jack Sawyer was for most of the
Did he
game.
get hurt?
I mean, he was in there at the end, so I didn't hardly see him in the third quarter, though. I don't know. Maybe I was just
Yeah.
not looking for him, but
No, because people were asking, like, did he get hurt? We barely saw him. I mean,
yeah.
he only had 2 tackles out there. None solo either. Caden Curry, when for some reason, every time he gets out there, he's making plays somehow. But I mean, it's hard for me to blame Chip Kelly because to be honest, I think he has the playbook and the plays to cook, but it's like you can only call things to Will Howard's strengths,
Yeah.
right? And one thing that we have said, especially Cam at Best Damn Media has said is Will not being on time with his throws, right?
Yeah.
And that the last play of the game, like I was telling my wife, I'm like, has to have the ball out in 3 seconds. Has to have the ball out in 3. I counted down 1, 2, 3. He did not have the ball out, and I was like, I knew it was that. I mean, I knew it was there.
Yeah.
Flat out, like I just knew it. So, and I mean, the one thing that we kept hearing from Ryan Day is experience, experience, experience. But my biggest worry coming into this season was having a quarterback who can drive the ball down the field and stress defenses out. Because do you feel like we really stress Oregon's defense out?
Um, I do feel like on the outside, the corners, we're having a little bit of a hard time with the blocking, but ultimately at the end of the day, they got through it. So, I do think that this was probably the toughest game that their corners had coverage wise. But other than that, like not really, because it was just kind of slow, methodical stuff down the field, right? I mean, it was just kind of throwing the ball to the outside, running the ball up the middle, the occasional read option and stuff like that there. Like, I mean, I feel like the time they were the most stressed out was in the red zone because they, you know,
That's it.
Chip was working with house money whenever he was in there and he was getting it done. But I do think their red zone touchdown scoring percentage did drop though because I think they were on the 19-yard line when the penalty happened that took them back to the 24. So I do think when they got that field goal, I don't know, maybe I'm misremembering, but Brett brings up a good point right under that comment there that you brought up there, Mike. He says, "Why was there only 6 seconds on the clock for the final play? There was 10 seconds prior to the illegal substitution. How could 4 seconds run off soon as the ball is snapped? It's a penalty." I thought the same thing, Mike, and we kind of touched on it earlier. Again, I'm not going to blame the refs. I don't do that personally, but I think that probably is part of the reason why Will Howard ran. He probably thought there were 10 seconds when there were only 6, and in reality, I mean, there should have been 10 seconds. There's not a rule out there that says, "Oh, penalty happens on the field." Like, and they were even talking about it at that Notre Dame game or the not the Notre Dame game. What was it last year? There was a game where they had 12 men on the field and Ohio
Mhm.
State had to play, but they were like, "Oh, if they would have accepted that, then the clock would have went back to regular." Like, there's no reason you let the play happen and then you accept the penalty unless they just declined it, which I guess that's possible, but I don't know why in the world. Well, no, they can't do that because they would have lost the timeout. I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
I don't know. I'm over here trying to go back to like that last second play right now, like so I can see like those seconds because I think when there was I think a play happened before. Like here's the 10-second play.
So the 10
It's
second
10
play,
seconds.
There were 12 men on the field. It was, like an out curl to Jeremiah Smith to the
It's
left. He got it,
uh,
got down, and then there were 6 seconds left.
it's 10 seconds, and it's 3rd and 25,
Yeah.
and we run a play.
But they don't call the play dead
Oh,
at the
and then
beginning.
and the play was actually dead at 7 seconds, but they kept it at 6.
Yeah. Which, if you would have had 7 seconds, Will Howard
Oh,
would have been down in time. Still.
oh, yeah, and they kept it at 6 instead of putting it back up to 10. Hold on, no, they put it back up to 10.
I don't think they did. I think it
Hold
was at
on,
6.
it right now it's up to 10. I'm looking. Hold on, let me go. Let me see.
Yeah, I think they switched it back
It's
to 6 because Will Howard was running.
It's 3rd and 25, and it shows 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3. We ran the play. Okay. The reason why I said 6 seconds was we ran that play to JJ. Remember? And the DB broke it up.
And that's when the illegal substitution happened.
No. That was after. No, this was after the illegal substitution.
How was it 3rd and 25 then? Because you got
JJ didn't catch the ball.
Yeah,
the DB
illegal
broke it up.
substitution should have put you up 5 more yards. So it should have been 3rd and 20.
True.
So I don't know. There's some funky stuff though going on with the clock at the end. I do think that the clock there at the after the offensive pass interference, that was correct. I mean, that was correct, and that was just an oversight by Will Howard and Ryan Day.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
okay, it's 3rd. Oh, the clock didn't go up. You're right. The clock did not go back up. It did not go back up to 10 seconds.
Yeah. So, I mean, Oregon got screwed with the call at the beginning of the game. We got screwed with the call at the end of the game. I'd argue it's worse to get screwed at the end than it is at the beginning, but you know what?
Right.
Both teams got screwed.
I kind of want to watch this in slow motion to watch the clock.
Yeah. So, I do think that was probably what was going through Will Howard's head. Is okay, I got 10 seconds. I'm going to drop back. If I don't have anything, the middle of that line is going to open. I'm going to run for it and get down at the 30 and call a timeout. He probably looked up at the time and was like, "Oh shit!" Like, here we go. I got to get down right now.
Yeah,
you saw him when he looked up. When he looked up, he got down right away, and I think it was probably because he thought there was supposed to be 10 seconds left.
You see Ennis coming in like, we're down.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, they should have got a timeout there at the end. So, again, not blaming the refs.
Ball should have been out. He should have threw it to JJ coming across right there.
Yeah.
And then, boom. And then you get down.
Yeah.
But it was like, if he got down, his knee's down right there, and it's 1 second left. So
Ennis is calling timeout right away, and he's yelling timeout. He might not be motioning it, but you could see he was yelling timeout as soon as he got it.
And it's still 1 second on the clock, and So does the quarterback have to call the timeout, or
anybody can call timeout? It doesn't have to be the quarterback.
Okay, well then Ennis called it, but it is what it is. But that's why you don't leave the game in the hands of the refs, man.
I think, I was gonna say, if I take anything away from this, it's not, Ohio State got screwed. It's that if we face Oregon again, I got no problem picking Ohio State.